The Galactic Academy buzzed with the hum of 1,000 voices and the shuffle of countless footsteps. Students of various species filled the corridors, their vibrant clothes and unique features painting a lively mosaic. Amidst the throng, Nyla moved quietly, her head bowed. Her shaved temples and hastily tied blonde hair framed her large deer-like ears, making her stand out even more in the diverse crowd. She clutched her books tightly, hoping to pass unnoticed, but luck was not on her side today. As she turned a corner, she nearly collided with Razik, a tall, scaly Sorin with a cruel glint in his eyes. Flanking him were Zach, the blue-skinned Avarian, and Druss, the insectoid Sick. They formed a menacing wall in front of her. "Well, well, if it isn't little Miss Deer Freak," Razik hissed, his forked tongue flicking out mockingly. Nyla's heart raced. "Please, just let me pass," she whispered, trying to sidestep them. But they moved in unison, blocking her path. Zach laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Look at that! The freak is scared. What's the matter? Afraid we'll mistake you for lunch?" Druss's mandibles clicked in amusement. "She's like a pathetic little fawn," he chittered. Nyla's eyes stung with tears, but she held them back, clutching her books tighter. The corridor seemed to close in around her, the bullies' laughter echoing in her ears. She wished desperately to disappear, to escape their cruel taunts. "Hey, leave her alone!" The voice rang out, clear and strong, slicing through the jeers like a blade. Nyla looked up to see a tall human cadet striding towards them, his piercing blue eyes fixed on the trio. His expression was a mix of determination and anger. Razik turned, sneering. "Stay out of this, human. This doesn't concern you." The young man stepped forward, his presence commanding. "I'm making it my concern," he replied. "I won't stand by and watch you bully her." Zach scoffed, his wings twitching in irritation. "Why do you care? She's just a freak. Look at her." "No, you look at her," the human countered, his voice steady and unwavering. "All I see is a beautiful, unique individual who deserves to be treated with respect. The only freaks I see here are you three, thinking it's okay to harass someone for being different." For a tense moment, the three bullies glared at him, but something in his eyes made them reconsider. With muttered curses and venomous glares, they slunk away, disappearing into the crowd. The human turned to Nyla, his expression softening. "Are you all right? They didn't hurt you, did they?" Nyla shook her head, wiping away a stray tear. "No, I'm okay. Thank you for standing up for me. No one's ever done that before." The young man smiled, a warm, reassuring smile. "No need to thank me. I just did what was right. I'm Kai, by the way." "Nyla," she replied, meeting his kind gaze. "I should get to class." "Let me walk with you," Kai offered. "Just in case those jerks decide to come back." As they walked together, Nyla felt a mix of relief and curiosity. "Why did you help me?" she asked, glancing up at him. Kai shrugged. "Because it's the right thing to do. No one deserves to be treated like that. Besides, I've seen you around. You seem nice." Nyla blushed, not used to such straightforward kindness. "Thank you," she said again, her voice softer. Kai's presence was a comforting shield as they navigated the crowded hallways. Nyla's initial shyness began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of gratitude and respect for this brave human who had come to her aid. As they reached her classroom, Kai gave her a final, reassuring smile. "If they bother you again, let me know," he said. "I'll make sure they regret it." Nyla nodded, her heart lightened by his words. "I will." "Thank you, Kai." He waved as she entered the classroom, his confident stride carrying him down the hallway. Nyla took her seat, feeling a newfound sense of safety. The whispers and curious glances of her classmates no longer felt as intimidating with Kai's support. Throughout the day, Nyla couldn't help but think about her encounter with Kai. His words echoed in her mind, giving her strength. For the first time since arriving at the Galactic Academy, she felt like she wasn't alone. As the final bell rang, signaling the end of classes, Nyla gathered her things and stepped out into the bustling corridors once more. She spotted Kai waiting for her, leaning casually against the wall. "Ready to head back?" he asked, his smile easy and welcoming. "Yes," Nyla replied, smiling back. They walked together, their conversation flowing naturally. Kai asked her about her home planet, Delia, and Nyla found herself opening up, describing the towering trees and harmonious cities with a wistful smile. Kai listened intently, fascinated by her descriptions. "It sounds beautiful," he said. "I'd love to learn more about it." Nyla's heart warmed at his genuine interest. "Maybe I could teach you some Delian cooking sometime," she offered. Kai's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "I'd love that." As they reached the dormitory, Kai paused. "Remember, if you ever need anything, I'm here for you." Nyla nodded, touched by his kindness. "Thank you, Kai. I'll see you tomorrow." "See you tomorrow, Nyla," he replied, watching her walk away. He felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing he'd made a difference. Kai and Nyla's friendship quickly became the talk of the academy. While some students whispered behind their backs, others watched in silent curiosity. Every day, Kai and Nyla sat together for lunch, their quiet table in the corner becoming a sanctuary amidst the chaos of the cafeteria. "Kai, have you ever tried zebra stew?" Nyla asked one day, her eyes lighting up with excitement. Kai shook his head, a smile playing on his lips. "No, but it sounds amazing. Tell me about it." Nyla's face brightened as she described the dish. "It's a hearty blend of tender meat, root vegetables, and fragrant herbs. My mother used to slow cook it to perfection. The aroma would fill our home, making me feel safe and loved." Kai listened intently, his interest genuine. "It sounds delicious. Maybe you could teach me how to make it sometime." Nyla's ears perked up, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "I'd like that," she replied softly, touched by his genuine interest. As the weeks passed, their conversations delved deeper. Kai shared stories about his home on Earth, the bustling cities, and the serene countryside. Nyla, in turn, talked about Delia, her home planet, with its towering trees and cities nestled among the branches. Each story brought them closer, revealing the rich tapestry of their lives. One afternoon, they decided to take a walk through the academy gardens. The air was filled with the sweet scent of alien flowers, and the soft hum of distant machinery provided a soothing backdrop. "Do you ever miss Earth?" Nyla asked, her voice gentle. Kai nodded, his gaze distant. "Every day. But being here, with friends like you, makes it easier." Nyla smiled, her eyes filled with understanding. "I feel the same way about Delia. This place is so different, and sometimes it's hard to fit in." Before Kai could respond, they were interrupted by the familiar, taunting voice of Razik. Well, if it isn't the human and his pet freak." Kai's jaw tightened, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Back off, Razik. We're not in the mood." Razik sneered, his reptilian eyes glinting with malice. "What are you gonna do, human? Fight me?" Kai stepped forward, his gaze unwavering. "If I have to." For a moment, the tension was palpable. Then, Razik laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You're not worth my time," he spat, turning away. "Come on, boys." As Razik and his gang disappeared into the crowd, Nyla let out a shaky breath. "Thank you, Kai." Kai placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to thank me. I'll always stand up for you." They continued their walk, but the encounter left a lingering shadow. That night, Nyla found herself unable to sleep. She replayed the day's events in her mind, feeling a mix of gratitude and guilt. She didn't want to be a burden to Kai, but she couldn't deny how much his friendship meant to her. The next morning, Kai noticed the dark circles under her eyes. "Didn't sleep well?" he asked, concern etched on his face. Nyla shook her head. "Just thinking too much." Kai's expression softened. "You know you can talk to me about anything, right?" Nyla hesitated, then nodded. "I know. It's just, I don't want you to get hurt because of me." Kai chuckled softly. "Nyla, I'm a cadet at the Galactic Academy. Facing challenges is part of the job. Besides, you're worth it." Nyla's heart swelled with gratitude. "Thank you, Kai. Your friendship means more to me than you know." As the days turned into weeks, their bond only grew stronger. They spent their free time exploring the Academy's vast libraries, working on assignments together and sharing meals. Kai's presence became a constant source of comfort for Nyla, a reminder that she wasn't alone. One evening, while they were studying in the library, Nyla glanced up from her book and caught Kai staring at her. "What?" she asked, feeling self-conscious. Kai shook his head, a soft smile on his lips. "Nothing. Just thinking about how much you've changed since we first met. You're so much more confident now." Nyla blushed, her ears twitching. "I couldn't have done it without you." Kai's gaze softened. "I'm just glad I could help." Their study sessions became a nightly ritual, a time for them to unwind and share their thoughts. Nyla found herself looking forward to these moments, cherishing the quiet companionship they offered. She began to open up more, sharing her dreams and fears, and in turn, learning about Kai's hopes and aspirations. As they walked back to their dorms one night, Nyla paused outside her door. "Kai, do you ever think about the future?" Kai looked thoughtful. "All the time. But I try to focus on the present, on making the most of every moment." Nyla nodded, a smile playing on her lips. "That's good advice. I'll try to remember that." Kai grinned. "Good night, Nyla." "Good night, Kai." Kai and Nyla's friendship blossomed in the weeks that followed their first encounter. The initial awkwardness between them gave way to an easy camaraderie built on shared experiences and mutual respect. They often met in the library, a sanctuary away from the noise and judgment of their peers. One evening, the soft hum of the library's lights cast a warm glow over the pair as they worked on an assignment. Kai watched Nyla as she focused on her work, her delicate fingers deftly turning the pages of a textbook. The gentle curve of her deer-like ears twitched slightly, a sign of her deep concentration. Nyla looked up, catching Kai's gaze. "Is something wrong?" she asked, her brow furrowing with concern. Kai felt his cheeks warm. "No, I was just thinking about how much more confident you are now. I'm really proud of you." Nyla's ears perked up, a smile tugging at her lips. "I couldn't have done it without you, Kai. Your friendship means everything to me." Kai's heart swelled with a mix of joy and longing. "I'll always be here for you, Nyla. No matter what." Their study sessions often turned into storytelling hours. Nyla would recount tales of her homeworld, Delia, painting vivid pictures of its lush landscapes and towering trees. "Our cities are built among the branches," she explained, her voice filled with nostalgia. "We live in harmony with nature, respecting all living things." Kai listened intently, fascinated by her descriptions. "It sounds like a paradise," he murmured, marveling at the beauty and wisdom of Delian culture. "I can't imagine how difficult it must be for you to be so far from home." Nyla sighed, her ears drooping slightly. "It hasn't been easy," she admitted. "Some of the other students make me feel like I don't belong here, like I'm some kind of freak." Kai reached out, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You do belong here, Nyla. You're one of the brightest and most talented students in our class. Don't let anyone make you doubt that." Nyla looked up at him, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, Kai. Your support means more to me than you know." Their bond grew stronger with each passing day. Kai admired Nyla's resilience and gentle spirit, while Nyla found solace in Kai's unwavering loyalty and kindness. They became inseparable, their connection deepening beyond mere friendship. One afternoon, as they walked through the academy gardens, the vibrant flora around them seemed to mirror their growing bond. Nyla spoke of her favorite Delian dishes, like zeper stew, a hearty blend of tender meat, root vegetables, and fragrant herbs. "My mother makes it best," she said with a wistful smile. "It always makes me feel like I'm back home." Kai grinned, his eyes sparkling with interest. "I'd love to try it someday. Maybe you could teach me how to make it." Nyla's ears perked up, a faint blush coloring her gray cheeks. "I'd like that," she replied softly, touched by his genuine desire to learn about her culture. Their peaceful afternoon was suddenly interrupted by the harsh voice of Razik. "Look, it's the human's pet freak," he sneered, his reptilian eyes filled with malice. Kai's patience snapped. "Leave her alone, Razik," he demanded, stepping protectively in front of Nyla. Razik's scaly lips curled into a sneer. "Oh, look at that! The human thinks he's a hero. How pathetic." Kai's voice was low and steady, but the intensity in his eyes made even Razik take a step back. The only pathetic thing here is your ignorance. Nyla is a beautiful, intelligent, and kind-hearted person. If you can't see that, then you're the one who doesn't belong here. Razik and his cronies exchanged nervous glances before backing off, their bravado deflated. Nyla squeezed Kai's hand, her heart racing at the fierce protectiveness in his voice. That evening, as they walked back to their dorms, Kai struggled with his emotions. He wanted to tell Nyla how he felt, but the words seemed to stick in his throat. Nyla, he began, his voice barely above a whisper. Nyla turned to him, her eyes wide with concern. What is it, Kai? He swallowed hard, his mouth suddenly dry. I just wanted to say, I'm really glad we're friends. Nyla smiled, her expression soft and warm. Me too, Kai. I don't know what I would do without you. Kai forced a smile, trying to ignore the twinge of disappointment in his chest. You can count on me, Nyla. I'll be right by your side through thick and thin. As they reached her door, Nyla turned to face him, her eyes searching his. For a moment, Kai thought he saw something there, a flicker of emotion that mirrored his own, but it was gone as quickly as it had appeared, and he couldn't be sure if it had been real or just a trick of the light. Good night, Kai, Nyla said softly, her hand resting on the door panel. Good night, Nyla, Kai replied, his voice barely above a whisper. As the door slid shut behind her, Kai let out a shaky breath, his shoulders slumping. Coward, he muttered to himself, his fists clenching at his sides. He turned and walked slowly back to his own dorm, his mind racing with thoughts of what could have been. Why can't I just tell her how I feel? He wondered, his heart aching with the weight of his unspoken emotions. But even as he berated himself for his lack of courage, Kai knew that the risk of losing Nyla was too great. She was the best thing that had ever happened to him, and he couldn't bear the thought of jeopardizing their friendship. Maybe it's better this way, he told himself, trying to convince his heart to listen to his head. Maybe we're just meant to be friends. But deep down, Kai knew that his feelings for Nyla were more than just friendship. He loved her with every fiber of his being, and the thought of never telling her was almost too much to bear. As he reached his own door, Kai paused, his hand hovering over the panel. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath and trying to gather his thoughts. I can't keep living like this, he whispered to himself, his voice barely audible in the stillness of the hallway. I can't keep pretending that I don't feel what I feel. The Galactic Academy hummed with the energy of students absorbed in their daily routines. Kai and Nyla walked together through the corridors, their footsteps echoing off the sleek metallic walls. The Academy, with its high ceilings and holographic displays, was a testament to the technological marvels of their time. Yet, despite the futuristic setting, some things never changed, like the cruelty of bullies. Look, it's the human's pet freak, Razik's voice cut through the air like a dagger, dripping with disdain. The reptilian Soren stood with his usual companions, Zack and Druss, smirking with malicious intent. Kai's jaw clenched as he felt a surge of protective instinct. Leave her alone, Razik, he demanded, stepping forward. His eyes, usually warm and inviting, were now cold and fierce. You've had your fun. It ends now. Razik sneered, his slitted eyes narrowing. Or what, human? What are you going to do? Kai's patience was wearing thin. I'm not going to tell you again, he said, his voice low and menacing. The crowd that had started to gather watched in tense silence, unsure of what would happen next. Nyla stood behind Kai, her heart pounding in her chest. She hated being the cause of this confrontation, but knew she couldn't keep running away. Gathering her courage, she stepped beside Kai. I don't need protection, Razik, she said, her voice steady despite the fear she felt. I just want to be left alone. For a moment, Razik seemed taken aback by her defiance. Then, his expression twisted into a sneer once more. Fine, he spat. But this isn't over. With that, he turned on his heel, his cronies following close behind. Kai let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding and turned to Nyla. Are you okay? He asked, concern etched on his face. I'm fine, Nyla replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Thank you, Kai. I don't know what I'd do without you. Kai smiled, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, something unresolved. "You'd do just fine, Nyla. You're stronger than you think." The incident left a lingering tension between them. Kai's feelings for Nyla were growing more complicated. He admired her courage and felt a deep connection that went beyond friendship. But he feared that revealing his feelings might jeopardize what they already had. One evening, as they studied in the library, Kai found his thoughts drifting away from the textbooks in front of him. The soft glow of the desk lamp highlighted Nyla's delicate features as she read. Her large, expressive ears twitched slightly, and her brow furrowed in concentration. "Kai?" Nyla's voice broke through his reverie. She looked up, concern in her eyes. "Are you okay? You seem distracted." Kai shook his head, trying to focus. "I'm fine," he lied. "Just tired, I guess." Nyla smiled sympathetically. "You've been doing a lot for me. I appreciate it more than you know." Kai wanted to say more, to tell her how he truly felt, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he forced a smile and nodded. "Anytime, Nyla." As they walked back to their dorms that night, the air between them seemed charged with unspoken words. Kai struggled with his emotions, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts and feelings. He wanted to tell her everything, to confess that his feelings had grown into something more than just friendship. But the fear of losing her, of shattering the bond they had built, held him back. "Nyla, he began, but the words faltered. He took a deep breath, trying to gather his thoughts. "I just wanted to say that. I'm really glad we're friends." Nyla stopped and turned to face him, her eyes searching his. For a brief moment, Kai thought he saw something in her gaze, a flicker of emotion that mirrored his own. But then it was gone, and he wondered if he had imagined it. "Me too, Kai," Nyla said softly. "I don't know what I would do without you." Kai smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "You can count on me, Nyla, always." They continued walking in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. As they reached Nyla's door, she paused and turned to him once more. "Good night, Kai." "Good night, Nyla," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. He watched as the door slid shut behind her, feeling a pang of regret and longing. Kai stood there for a moment, his shoulders slumping with the weight of his unspoken emotions. He turned and walked slowly back to his own dorm, his mind racing. Why couldn't he just tell her how he felt? The fear of losing her was too great, but the pain of keeping his feelings hidden was almost unbearable. As he reached his room, Kai paused, his hand hovering over the door panel. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his thoughts. "I can't keep living like this," he whispered to himself. "I have to tell her. I have to be honest." Kai woke up with a sense of determination pulsing through his veins. He couldn't keep his feelings for Nyla hidden any longer. The moment had come to confess, regardless of the risks. As he made his way to the cafeteria, his heart raced with anticipation. He scanned the crowded room, but Nyla was nowhere to be seen. A commotion at the entrance caught his attention. A group of students rushed in, their faces etched with concern. "Did you hear what happened to that Delian girl?" One of them whispered urgently. Kai's blood ran cold. Without a second thought, he sprinted out of the cafeteria, his mind singularly focused on finding Nyla. As he bolted through the corridors, panic gripped his heart. He should have known Razik and his gang wouldn't give up so easily. He burst into the courtyard and immediately spotted a small crowd gathered at the far end. The sound of mocking laughter and cruel taunts reached his ears, fueling his anger. Kai pushed his way through the throng of students, his eyes widening in horror at the scene before him. Nyla was on the ground, her books scattered around her as Razik and his cronies loomed menacingly over her. "Not so tough without your human bodyguard, are you, freak?" Razik sneered, his foot poised to strike. Before Razik could react, Kai's fist connected with his jaw in a sickening crack, sending the Soren stumbling backward. "I warned you," Kai growled, positioning himself protectively in front of Nyla. "I told you to leave her alone." Razik wiped the blood from his split lip, his eyes narrowing with hatred. "You're gonna regret that, human," he snarled, lunging at Kai with his claws outstretched. Kai dodged the attack, using Razik's momentum to send him sprawling to the ground. Zack and Druss exchanged nervous glances, clearly reconsidering their decision to take on the enraged human. Get out of here, Kai snarled, his eyes blazing with fury. And if I ever catch you bothering Nyla again, you'll be sorry. The two quickly backed away, dragging a dazed Razik with them. The crowd of students began to disperse, whispering amongst themselves as they went. Kai turned to Nyla, his expression softening as he helped her to her feet. Are you all right? He asked gently, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. Nyla nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. I am now, she whispered. Thank you, Kai. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't shown up. Kai pulled her into a tight embrace, his heart racing as he held her close. I'll always be here for you, Nyla. I promise. As they stood there wrapped in each other's arms, Kai knew that he couldn't wait any longer. He had to tell her how he felt, consequences be damned. He pulled back slightly, his hands cupping her face as he gazed into her eyes. Nyla, there's something I need to tell you, he began, his voice trembling with emotion. Nyla's eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat. What is it, Kai? He took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. I love you, Nyla. I have for a long time now. I was just too afraid to tell you, too worried that it might ruin our friendship. But I can't keep it inside any longer. You mean everything to me, and I want to be more than just your friend? For a moment, Nyla was silent, her expression unreadable. Kai's heart sank, fear gripping his chest as he wondered if he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. But then a smile spread across her face, her eyes shining with joy and love. Oh, Kay, she breathed. I love you too. I have since the moment you first stood up for me. I never thought you could feel the same way about someone like me. Kai silenced her with a kiss, pouring all of his love and passion into the tender embrace. Nyla melted into his arms, her own wrapping around his neck as she returned the kiss with equal fervor. When they finally parted, breathless and giddy with happiness, Kai rested his forehead against hers. Someone like you, he murmured. You mean someone beautiful, intelligent, kind, and brave. Someone who has faced adversity with grace and strength. Someone who has captured my heart completely. Nyla blushed, her eyes sparkling with happy tears. I never knew love could feel like this, she whispered. Kai grinned, his heart soaring with joy. Neither did I. But now that I've found it with you, I'm never letting go. Hand in hand, they walked out of the courtyard, their hearts full of love and hope for the future. They knew that there would be challenges ahead, that not everyone would accept their interspecies relationship. But together, they could face anything. Their love was a testament to the power of acceptance, understanding, and the courage to stand up for what was right.